at the Allen Centennial Garden. It's on the campus of University of Wisconsin-Madison. Excuse me. I love the design of it. This is the area. It's small, it's urban, it's in the middle of the campus. Um, it has lots of little areas with lots of color and bold textures and design in it. They have a rock garden that has paths going through it that's
Shaw.
laid out very nicely. What was that?
It's called the Shaw Nature Reserve.
Oh, the
Missouri
one
Botanic
that's
Gardens outside. If you
Shaw.
want to see incredible shade gardens, the
Yeah.
Shaw Nature Reserve.
And that rock garden then merges into more of a perennial, almost prairie look.
Steve is always blown away by the Allen Centennial Garden because it's a city block. It's one block and it has enough curves and interest in it that you can spend a long time in
A
it.
long time. A lot of curving paths, a lot of and I at the time we were there was a lot of mixture of annuals, perennials, and vegetables.
As part of the
And
design.
some of the vegetables blew away the annuals and perennials
Yeah, they were so
visually. They
beautiful.
were so beautiful. And
A lot of that had to do with the designer that I believe that his first name is Fred.
yeah,
I believe that he's moved to a different garden now.
yeah.
And it'll be interesting to see
But
what
the
a new
bones are
designer
still
did to
here.
it. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to go back someday and see what has changed, because the bones are still going to be there, but the paths and some nice benches, but that texture, that color, those combinations, you look at it, who thought of that?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what I like.
Corn, variegated corn plants. Yeah, with dinosaur kale.
And in the fall, it can be,
It reverts to looking at the rock garden and the alpine
yeah.
plants in the fall color. Now, one of the things that we didn't put in here because everything was just so pretty to look at is we don't have any of them marked questions, but if we're going to take a break here and talk questions before we switch to the next garden,
Okay.
that's good.
We do have a quick question from Gretchen, and this could be a possibility for a good speaker too. Is there a good hardscaper who could talk about the pavers that allow for drainage who works in this area? So other people who might want to sort out their driveways in better ways.
Thank you. Good topic.
Yes,
Very
yes.
good topic. We can talk about, it's called permeable pavement. And we can definitely talk with the people that were responsible for putting that in, or some of the ones in Massachusetts at the what's the Framingham Gardens in Massachusetts Horticultural Society's gardens.
Yeah.
Yeah. The last urban garden, the one that we're looking at right now, is the Allen Centennial Garden on the campus of University of Wisconsin in Madison. Allen Centennial Garden. And the last urban garden, there may have been another one, but I'm no, because we were in Florida just before the throw.
Yeah. Anything else?
I don't think we have any other questions. Jean was asking about what vegetables she likes to add kale, and you were mentioning the corn. Maybe just opportunity if anyone has favorite ornamental vegetables if they want to throw it at a chat.
There are peppers everywhere.
So many peppers, so many colors of peppers, so many heights of peppers.
The kale, the lettuces,
that variegated corn was striking, absolutely striking.
Yeah. So perhaps my favorite place to see trees, Arnold Arboretum. Just
that it looks like there's a forest behind the garden. That whole treed area, every one of those trees is part of their collection. And some of those trees have been there since the early 1800s.
Yep.
They are placed where the people in charge, when they acquired the plant, figured that it might grow well and just allowed to grow or not. So every tree you're looking at there, every single tree is on their accession list, is a particular type of beech, is a particular type of crabapple. It is it's exhausting to even think about how much there is to look at. We ran around the gardens with Michael Durr in the 90s. We were trying to convince him to come to Michigan
Yeah.
and do a conference, which he was not interested in doing if it meant being in cold in the wintertime.
And fine.
But now we know, in order to make it up to us, we grabbed bicycles and rode around the garden with him and looked for things. And we literally were beating our way through undergrowth looking for a particular plant that had been studying. It's pretty neat.
There are so many just beautiful, beautiful trees throughout the Arboretum. It's a public park. You can roller skate, you could skateboard, you could
There are people
ride
with their
bikes,
dogs walking through, yeah. And they are just allowed to grow. There's not a lot of pruning done.
Safety pruning is their main.
Right. There's not an effort to shape the plant or change it into a different size than it wants to be. So this Japanese maple is grown as the Japanese maple wants to grow.
All of these
are all
Japanese maples.
Yeah.
And they're all tagged. And this is
one of Steve's favorite cats.
An ancient Ketzer. It's lost quite a bit of what it had, but it's still growing and it's coming back strong. And they have just huge paperbark maples, all types of dogwoods that they're, some introductions, some that they're trying, some that they just.
Mike Durr pointed us toward the entrance, and he said, out there between here and the visitor center, he said, in with the trees. He said, there's got to be 25 different species of magnolia. If you wanted to collect seed and grow and see a cool new magnolia, that's the place to collect seed. And we got into a discussion of seed, and you can get a lot of money for special seed like that. We started thinking about, well, let's start showing up where we could like beat the bushes and grab seed and make some money here.
So as you're walking, you just amazed at the trees. So Arnold Arboretum for the trees.
And it is a city park, so it's very well used. Our kids, didn't they have rollerblades?
Yep.
Or was it the bikes that?
Rollerblades.
There is a path that goes up one of the hills and it spirals up the hill. Big spirals. You don't know really when you're walking that you're on that. But they got to the top of that hill and decided to ride their bikes down the hill. I mean, they came with rollerblades one time, but this was the bikes. And literally they disappeared from sight, screaming down that hill. And I'm thinking there's all those people walking up, they're going to run into somebody, they're going to crash, they're going to burn. I'm running down the path behind them, never found where he was.
Nope. So that's a big nice metasequoia.
Big dawn redwood.
Yep. And then near us, Hidden Lake Gardens in Tipton, Michigan State's
outlying botanical.
The Harper dwarf conifers.
Better than any other in the country. In large part, we should have Dennis Grow someday for the webinar too. In large part because of the American Conifer Society volunteers who knew the person who donated the original plants to start the Harper collection. Their involvement in this, volunteer involvement, has been one of the main reasons that this is the best in the country.
It's still a
maybe in the
marvelous collection. The Harper originally started right in here, these larger ones. Some have been added over the years.
And moved around.
They're
dwarf conifers that are allowed to grow. And if they end up being too big for their space, they're moved to someplace else. They're not clipped. And every one of them is marked, and every one of them is marked accurately to tell you which variety of bird's nest spruce, Norway spruce that is.
Yeah. And it's just an extensive area with lots of different conifers. Some make it, some don't, some get replaced.
What was cool is that the designer of the gardens, so he took the collection that was being offered by Chubb Harper out of Iowa. Chubb Harper was a landscape maintenance guy who got interested in conifers and started collecting them, and he started donating collections to various places to get them started. So Chubb Harper donated the plants, about 100 different conifers, and the designer took those plants and made for each one a model, a 2D model, like you would put into the background of a
Mhm.
play on a theater stage, and played around with them. Say, which ones should I put together to have different colors and different shapes together? They're marvelously
Yeah.
deployed.
This is like the newer area, and then to our right is the more established, but that's a few years later, the
Yeah.
newer area. They grow faster than you think.
And like many botanical gardens, the tags, the labels on these plants in the conifer garden have on them the year it was planted. And you can assume that they were all planted at small size. See that little tiny guy with
This
that thing?
guy
That
right
they were
there.
all planted little. So you can look and say, this one took 20 years to get this big, or this
Yeah.
one took 15 years to get this big.
And then they get this big,
Yeah,
and all the colors. And that rock never grew, but these guys did.
that's Steve's favorites.
And there,
Weeping white pine that just is a tree laying on its side. People say it's just a dwarf. Well, yeah, it's a dwarf, but that's what I want our white pine in the front
yes,
yard to do. I want it to just continue to grow.
yeah. So again, the conifer collection, the design, the layout,
Okay.
everything about it.
Okay, you can get out of the conifer.
I'm trying. I thought I did. Dawes Arboretum, down near Columbus area, also Ohio, has an arb hedge that is phenomenal. It's open all year.
That particular picture that Steve just showed you was in the spring. It has the best witch hazel collection that we know
Yes.
anywhere in terms of numbers of witch hazels and beautifully displayed.
But we're seeing part of this hedge that says Dawes Arboretum, and that is,
Steve's up on a viewing tower looking down
Yeah.
at it.
and that's their conifer collection over here.
Now, I was looking at these pictures that you put together, Steve, and remembering that you saw them redoing this hedge, where they let these dwarf globe arborvitaes, they're all hats midgets, I think.
Yep.
They let them grow, and once they start getting too big, they just redid it. And it seems like that was just a few years ago, but I noticed your sign says replanted in 1991, but that wasn't that long ago.
No, they've redone it again.
Okay, so you did
This
see it
is
just
an
a few
yeah.
years ago where they took them all out and started the whole thing over again.
Yeah.
So when
But it's 2,000 feet long,
yeah,
and and I was going to mention the witch hazel
Sorry,
collection.
sorry.
It's one of the most phenomenal I've ever seen, and the smell is just great.
Cantigny Gardens.
It's a little bit different.
Yeah,
Um,
outside of Chicago, on the west side of Chicago.
if
No,
any,
no, we have to tell them the history of this. This is the
Yeah.
Cantigny estate. If you saw
a league of their own.
a league of their own about the women's baseball during World War II, when Tom Hanks went to meet the
Owner,
the owner of the team, he was at Cantigny Estates looking out of along this area here. So it is a private estate, actually two estates, because the brother, I think it was, owned the next one over, and now it's a public garden, and because the owner was associated with the First Army Corps in World War
Yeah.
II,
Big
was
red
called the
one.
Big Red One. Throughout the garden, there are places that pay homage to the First Army. So you'll see in this garden tanks, cannons.
Yeah. And they also have an area that it's the Big Ten Gardens. Now,
That's Steve's favorite part.
I haven't been there since Oregon, Washington, USC, and UCLA. I'd like to see them get a Big Ten garden from those plants.
Oh, okay, yeah.
See, so this is just the Midwest Big Ten.
The newly added
And
colleges.
each garden had a theme that matched the university. It was interesting, and they had certain things about it. So I like that. I like their humor that they have in there. And they also at the same time are teaching,
Yeah.
with different vegetable gardens, composting. And there are tanks. Sherman and that, and the big red one.
Yeah.
So Whistling Gardens in Ontario.
And the closest city would be Brantford,
Yeah.
but it's south of Brantford in a little town that doesn't really exist.
It's
just
a little easier to find now than it was the first time I went there. My map didn't know where it was, and I ended up at a cornfield.
The closest that I can come to describing Whistling Gardens is to describe Butterstream in north of Dublin in Ireland, where one man decided, I'm going to buy this property and do something with it. And with one man with a machete and some tools, just keeps clearing more property and doing more stuff with it. So there's a nursery at the near
To
the,
help support what he's doing.
and then there are follies.
He built that. Everything here has
Built by one man and one helper. And so he has a folly as a background to the topiary gardens here. And has as you go along the hedge here, there's a garden beyond, and it has in arbor gazebos with living posts bent over and pleached together to make the arbor out of a living tree.
and
Lots of dwarf conifers.
he's a dwarf conifer collector. So it is an extensive garden.
I don't remember how many acres it is, 40 acres?
Something like that. It's
40 acres with additional that he can move out to.
and he's designed where the rocks go. He's
And
done
it's still maintained by one person and one helper.
that we know of.
Acres and acres.
With
Built
water
bridges.
features.
Yeah.
Bridges.
And with an entire water garden with the computer controlled and musically enhanced water display fountain displays.
A mini longwood
A
fountains.
mini longwood fountain, yeah.
And they do go off and they do provide music and they do put on a show.
And there's a menagerie with parrots and other interesting birds and animals that you can look at. That's Whistling Gardens. And if you're
I'm
traveling,
just gonna break in real quick. We had a question from Stacy, and actually this is not our normal Stacy. So welcome, Stacy Chef. Have you been to Arbor Day Foundation Center in Nebraska City, Nebraska? And do you have thoughts on that?
no, we have not, and we meant to get to that area.
We drove
Should I say we got stuck in Iowa?
Yeah, we did.
It took us too long to go through those gardens, so that's next on our list.
Yeah.
Thank you, though. That's what we need from people, is tell us where you've been.
And this is also our 5-minute warning.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good. It's a good place for it because Sycamore Hill is open only by appointment. So you would need to say, I have a group, I'd like to come through. Can you give me a tour? Or you'd be there on one of the days when they open the garden as a fundraiser for one of the local societies of one kind or another.
But it was
Sycamore Hill, it's near Syracuse. It's in the middle of kind of nowhere near Syracuse.
Yeah.
And
they've also built some
follies. Backgrounds.
They have a wonderful sycamore. I mean, that's one of the most gorgeous sycamores you ever
see it from space. Yeah. And it's interesting that you can look at their website and see a gallery of photos. What's more interesting to me and what we like to look at about gardens is look at them on a Google map view. So here's Sycamore Hill, and can you see what one of their main features is? The maze.
And it is a maze.
It's an amazing maze. But I see right there, that's a dragon. If you look, you can see the tail sticking up. No, Stephen, it's this bed.
Right here.
There, yeah, the bed, there's a tail sticking out to one side and some feet extending to the side. And that dragon is that collection of weeping Norway spruces. Now, I noticed that the new picture from space, they've replanted it, so it probably got too big. But that's it right there.
Yeah.
And now it's been replanted. But it was a dragon, and dragon themes throughout the garden. There are dragons, and we just love dragons.
Yeah, we do.
Lots of little beds.
And there it is.
The maze, though, I was about here in the maze. Steve said, no, I'm not going in there. I was about there in the maze when I heard somebody on the other side of the shrub say, I think we've been here before. Didn't we pass that dead bird once before? I also was elsewhere in here when I heard them break through the shrubs on the outside. They said, I gotta get out of here.
It's an extensive maze.
Yeah, it was fun to do.
And that's from the outside.
All right. And there were places where people had obviously broken through
Stuck their
before.
hands
Yeah.
through.
Said, help, help. Okay, we'll end with the Morton Arboretum then, Steve.
Okay. The Morton Arboretum, it's another arboretum.
It's outside of
Chicago that does a lot of research with trees, but there are a lot of things. This gateway to tree science display is, everybody should see this. They have a lot of information signs. It's a big area in a circle.
They're talking to you about tree shapes. They're talking to you about tree families.
Why is it endangered? Why everything? How does Arboretum choose which ones to
Do they have
say?
an oak collection or what?
Oh, they have an oak collection, and that's a real tree, and it's showing its root system, and that they describe how this root system is growing, and how that one is growing,
And how that crack developed on that
and how
oak.
the oaks develop. And then this is the oak family circle. It's
So you
white
can
oak, red oak, and where they were at, and where they grow. The Eurasian white oaks, the Southwest red oaks of Latin America. And it's laid out to tell you where they went. It's very cool. You could spend easily a couple hours just walking, reading their signs and checking out their root system.
Teaching you how roots
Teach
actually
how
grow.
roots actually grow.
Are they deep? It's an oak? No, they are not. They
no.
do not mirror the top of the plant.
It's a white pine, that one was. And then there's more that I never even made it back to. They talked about girdling roots and showed you girdling roots. And why do Arboretum scientists do the research?
Morton Arboretum is where Gary Watson did his work for, I believe he's retired now, but he's still there quite a bit. Gary Watson wrote Principles and Practice of Planting Trees and Shrubs, and has been one of the main people involved in trying to get the root girdling growth problem solved. Yeah.
And they also had a huge maze.
But short enough that kids can go into it.
And in the children's garden, a really cool new children's garden, like it, but the roots,
The kids can climb underneath.
They could show up. So
okay,
we'll end there.
We'll end there.
I don't know how to get to the end.
We'll let Stephen. Well, I think we'll probably have to just escape.
Okay.
And then you can just, you can just stop the share. And we'll tell people about it. We definitely have more gardens we can tell you about. Steve could go on and on.
On and on and on and on. We missed a lot.
And we'll start with Rudolph if we do that.
So.
We do a stage 2 of these gardens. So that's us. We're back. We'll do another webinar at the beginning of February. I forgot what the topic is. I know that it's seeds and growing things from seeds, but it probably has something else to do with propagating plants.
Yeah.
And we will definitely see you there if you're a subscriber. If you're not a subscriber, you might want to contact us and see what you can do about getting into the end of our season or into the next season we put together, or come on any Friday, 7 to 8, where we don't have a webinar the next day. So visit us this Friday coming up.
Thank you very much.
There is there's today's list in order is in the chat right now, but we will also send out a slightly more geographically cognizant list and map suggestion to go with the keys and notes from this week.
You're too good, Sonia. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
She's trying to make up for the flower.
Oh, not really.
No. Thank you very much for being here, and enjoy your quiet January as the days start getting longer now, and take us out of the doldrums.
Let's hope so.
We'll talk to you on Friday on our free for all.